I'm going to walk through this 75-inch Sharp 4K LED display the way most of us approach a big purchase, with a little skepticism, a handful of what-ifs, and the hope that the box we open actually solves the problem we set out to fix. If you've ever walked into a meeting room that feels more like a cave because the screen is too dim, or tried to hang a digital sign only to end up with a glare that makes the text unreadable, you know how costly a mismatch can be. That's why I'm keeping it real, no hype, just the kind of detail that helps you decide whether this screen is worth the money, the wall space, and the time you'll spend getting it up and running. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the environment this monitor is built for. Sharp markets the ME752 as a message essential display, which basically means it's meant to double as a meeting room projector and a digital signage board. In a modern office, you'll often have a single piece of hardware serving both roles: a daily stand-up, a quarterly town hall, and an occasional welcome guest screen. The 75-inch size hits that sweet spot, big enough to be seen from the back of a medium-sized conference room, but not so massive that you need a special mount or a dedicated wall. The 4K resolution does a solid job of keeping text sharp when you're scrolling through spreadsheets, and the LED backlight keeps colors vivid enough for brand-compliant signage. One of the first things I checked was the connectivity. The standout here is the native USB-C port that supports bring-your-own-device workflows. In practice, that means a presenter can plug a laptop directly into the screen with a single cable, and the display will automatically switch to the correct input, handle power delivery, and even pass through the video signal without a separate HDMI dongle. For anyone who's tired of fumbling with a tangle of adapters during a client demo, that's a genuine time saver. It also future-proofs the setup a bit, since newer laptops are moving away from HDMI entirely. The other side of the connectivity story is the Android-based operating system that runs the signage side of things. Sharp promises regular OTA, over-the-air, updates, which is reassuring because it means you won't be stuck on a dated UI the next time a new version of a content management app rolls out. In a real-world scenario, I've seen teams use the built-in Android to pull a live Twitter feed, schedule a playlist of promotional videos, or even display a live Google Calendar of room bookings, all without needing a separate mini PC or streaming stick. That flexibility can shave a few $100s off a dedicated signage solution. Now, let's get into the nitty-gritty of daily use. The first test was lighting. Many large displays struggle in bright rooms. The panel's high haze filter is designed to cut down on glare and keep the picture visible even when the blinds are up. In a well-lit open-plan office, the screen held up surprisingly well, text stayed legible, and the colors didn't wash out. The downside? The haze filter does a bit of a trade-off on contrast. In a darkened conference room, blacks look more like dark gray than true black, which is something to keep in mind if you plan to use the screen for video playback or any content where deep shadows are important. It's not a deal-breaker for most business presentations, but it's a nuance that can affect perceived image quality. Another practical consideration is the mounting and installation process. Sharp ships the unit with a VESA-compatible bracket, but because the panel is a solid 75-inch LED, the total weight is on the heavier side of wall-mountable displays. If you have a standard metal stud wall, you'll likely need to reinforce the mounting point or use a dedicated mounting plate. That's an extra step most buyers overlook until the day they try to lift the screen onto the wall and realize it's not a pop-off job. In my experience, budgeting a little extra for professional installation is wise, especially if you're installing it in a high-traffic meeting room where the mount has to endure frequent adjustments. On the software front, the Android OS is fairly vanilla but comes with a set of pre-installed apps for signage and a web browser. If your organization already uses a cloud-based signage platform, you can usually install its Android client directly from the Play Store, though you might have to whitelist the app in the system settings. The biggest limitation I've encountered with Android-based signage is the lack of deep system integration with enterprise single sign-on solutions. You can work around it with a browser-based login, but it's an extra click for IT departments that are used to pushing policies through a centralized console. So if you're a small team that manages its own content, this won't be a problem. If you're a large enterprise with strict security policies, you might need to involve your IT team early on. Let's talk value. The price point for a 75-inch 4K